Welcome to Local Muse, podcast where we dive into the people who are shaping the vibe of Toronto. I'm Rowan Assad, your host, and I believe life is an art of self-expression. Here we celebrate those bold enough to follow their passions, and I truly believe everyone came here to this planet for a reason. Through human design, we uncover their roadmap to living their true purpose. We get real about the journey of making an impact, so get ready to be inspired. Let's tap into the muse. Welcome to Local Muse. I'm your host, Rowan Assad, and I'm going to be taking you through the dynamic stories of people who are living their truth, chasing their dreams, and add to the vibe of the city of Toronto. So we're going to explore the energetic blueprints using human design, and today I have the wonderful, the vivacious, the amazing Veronika Radolovich, aka Sparkles, the fantastic dancer, artist, fashion designer. You do so many creative things. Overall, amazing, incredible human being. Someone I'm so lucky to call a dear friend of mine. So I'm so excited to dive in because we haven't really dived in too much into your human design. And what's really cool about it is you're actually my first projector, which we'll dive into. But thank you so much for being here.
I'm so excited.
Yay! So I always love to start because a cool part of this podcast is that we explore different parts of Toronto.
Yeah.
And we are here today in your childhood home, right?
Yeah.
So we're in the beaches, vibes. Maybe you could start off by just sharing a little bit about maybe how special this place is to you. And
yeah, of course. Yeah. So me and my family moved here when I was about 10 years old.
Okay.
And my school growing up is literally a block away.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I could always walk to school and then I'd come home for lunch. My mom would make me lunch.
Oh, that's so cute.
And so my parents have been here for the last 26 years and it's always been just... as you can tell, just so cute and artsy and homey, and I always just feel so happy and safe here.
I love it. So obviously the impact of your parents being artists, was that a huge influence for you to kind of go into the creative world?
I think my parents are probably my biggest inspiration.
That's amazing.
And then meeting in art school and then having me and my sister feel like we're kind of... they're big art projects in life.
Yeah.
So they've always been very cool about me going down the arts path. But for me, even from a very young age, I've always known that this is what I'm good at and this is what I love. And I'm not going to go off and be a scientist or a mathematician or something.
Yeah.
I'm going to focus on what I know that I can bring to the table.
I love that. And honestly, that is a huge reason why I wanted to start this podcast, is because we see to believe what is possible. So when we see people going after their dreams like that, we all of a sudden are like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it. And so having that from such a young age, especially when your brain is so malleable, it's so important. So I love that. Okay, so let's dig into your human design. So like I mentioned, you're a projector. You're actually a 1-3 splenic projector, which is actually really funny being a splenic projector because our friend and our mutual friend, Kimmy, she's also a splenic projector. And reading through your human design chart, it was interesting to see the similarities that you have between me and Kimmy. So we can really dive deep into that. But to start off, as a projector, you are actually here as a guide to other people. So you see energy, how it moves a little bit deeper, and you just see it comes a lot easier to you than it does to other people. Yeah. So as a projector, you're actually the newest energy type. So a little human design, history is your energy type was created when we discovered Pluto. So the chakra system, the 7 chakras, we actually evolved into nine energy centers, and when that happened, that's when the projector was born. So you became the new leader. My energy type, the manifestor, used to be the leader, but we led through brute force, and then you actually lead through guidance.
Yeah, I feel like I've always been someone who leads by example. I'm not oh, this is what you need to do or whatever. I'm just going to be the best version of myself.
Yeah.
And I guess project what I think is right and lead by example.
Yeah, that is actually very, very great way. And it's funny because projectors often will intuitively, and because splenic means that you have to trust your spleen, which is our survival center. So it's like trusting them when the right time comes, you know that the right thing to do, but it's almost like a little whisper. It's not very loud.
Yes.
But being a projector, you have like your aura is very penetrative, absorbing. So it can be a little confronting to some people.
Yeah.
They feel very bare when they're around you. But I think the most important thing to take away as a projector is your strategy, which is to wait for the invitation. And as your friend, I know you've had a lot of great invitations in your life.
Yes.
So have you noticed, like, when is it a time where you have an invitation where you feel like it's not aligned, or do you ever feel like, do you resonate with that? Do a lot of great invitations come your way?
I do get a lot of great invitations, and
Yeah.
I think you're totally correct. Whereas, like, if I don't get one, then I'm just like, I'm not engaged at all.
Yeah, you need to like wait for that to come before your energy can really be like, okay, is this the right invitation? It's not like you have to say yes to everyone, but
Yeah.
but to recognize that. But like I said, your role in this world, because each energy type plays a different role. So you're the advisor, the guide. You make a really good director because you see how energy moves. And throughout your career, I think you're really taking, because everything creative is always taking this like energy from inside and bringing it out into the world and figuring out how that energy moves. So we could definitely talk a lot about that, but your signature is success. So for you, when you're in true alignment of your energy, you're always going to feel like at the end of the day, if you had a really good day, you come home and you're like, that was a successful day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you in terms of like finding success, or what does success really mean to you?
I think that it's something that I always have to remind myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the end of the day, going over my day and being like, oh, I'm proud of myself for doing, eating healthy and showing up and keeping my word and being able to work on art or just focus on my mind,
Mm-hmm.
because someone who's like always like more, I'm not good enough, I like, like I could be better, like it's like I have to constantly remind myself of all of the work and all the baby steps that I put into it.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things of being human that kind of sucks is like once you've gotten used to a certain level, we're just kind of like, oh, what's next? Especially as an Aries. We're just like, okay, what's next? Like, okay,
You're like, that's great, but keep it coming.
Yeah, let's go. Like, let's not get too comfortable here. Do you struggle with like finding those moments of gratitude, or being like, oh, I'm okay here, I want to celebrate this? Do you celebrate those small wins?
I definitely do.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I also do have a bit of a challenge. Like I have to always remind myself how far I've come.
Yeah.
Because you're so right. Once you like get to a place where you're comfortable, and say my like new apartment after being not having a home for 2 years and manifesting like the apartment of my dreams.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I'm just like, okay, this is great, but like the space is not functioning and there's so much I need to put into the space. And now that the space is functioning, I'm like, oh, what's next? Like, I want to do more brand collabs, or I want to do more commissions, or I want to find a gallery. Like there's still like things that I crave within my career where I haven't gotten to the place that I see myself, and I'm still like struggling and like but yeah, I definitely have to remind myself and be like, you're doing good, you're safe, you created the space for yourself, and that's really amazing.
It is really amazing. And it's actually really funny because when we look at your human design chart, this arrow, the second arrow, it represents your environment, and because it goes to the left, it shows that you really need a space to feel more grounded, and you like to go to the same places over and over again because it just gives you that sense of grounding. So now manifesting your new apartment, your amazing studio, it's gorgeous, and it's you're living in Montreal now.
Yeah, right downtown.
Yeah. So, like, how can you see a difference between those 2 years when you were kind of bouncing around versus now feeling this like grounded energy, that shift that it's created for you?
Oh, like huge. I get way less sick, I notice.
Hmm.
I don't feel like I'm at the mercy of where I'm staying or who I'm with and what they want to do all the time.
Yeah.
I feel that I just have more peace and more choice. And there's nothing wrong with me, being out there in the world, and, I got to spend time with friends who I don't always get to see in
Hmm.
beautiful countries. But going through so much and not having a grounding space to let go when needed, because everything's so fast
Yeah.
paced when you're traveling, becomes a little bit difficult, and you get very weathered
Hmm.
and sometimes lose yourself a little bit, especially if you're going through like a heartbreak. Then
Yeah.
just like you're like, it's actually even difficult to sit still, and so you find yourself going out every day,
Yeah.
and you're just like, I'm like, can my body handle like one more alcoholic beverage right
Yeah.
now?
Well, it's like a form of numbing, right? And it's almost in a sense, it's like the more that you don't stay grounded, you don't have to deal with the pain and the hurt and the processing of all those big emotions,
Exactly.
right?
You're just like out in the ether. You're like, do.
Yeah. Did you have any like little tricks of finding grounding even when you are not, when you're bouncing around?
I like the last like couple years when I was traveling so much, I never before on vacation would like work out or
Mm.
like do yoga. And so I found that since I was away for so long, that was something that was really important.
Yeah.
So, going, being in London for 2.5 months, going to yoga, a couple
Mm-hmm.
times a week,
Yeah.
or finding classes to do was making sure like you have your green juice, and like just
Yeah.
these like little things, like these little moments where you
Yeah.
just like
It's really interesting because it's like at the end of the day, no matter where you are in your environment, our body is our home. And so finding that makes sense that you're finding groundingness and connecting to your body on a consistent level, you know? So that's,
so important.
yeah, it is really important. So another part of your profile is your profile is being a 1-3, which is an investigator martyr. So the being the investigator is all about like if you love to research, you love to build foundations. Yeah, like if something interests you, you're like down to the I need to go on Wikipedia or like find all the information I can about something. And then the other part, being the martyr, is just really being paving on your journey. You're bound to make mistakes, and the only way that you really learn from like the only way you really learn is by making mistakes. So even if I was like, don't put your hand in the fire, like, oh no, it's okay, and then you'll do it, and then you're like, oh okay, I can't put my hand in the fire, kind of thing, right? So in your journey overall, especially when you've come to becoming an artist and you've really, maybe you can talk a little bit about exactly, for those who don't know, you do a really, really incredible, innovative way of like taking painting and then also dance. So two really amazing creative forms, and you've fused them together. So what has been that journey, and what, maybe share a little bit about some of the mistakes that got you to finding this really unique creative art form?
Yeah, I think it all started working actually with Natasha. We were collaborating for a few years, and I would be her muse and her model, and she would paint me head to toe, just like so gorgeous. And you have to stand still for a very long time. And I think that I'm someone who's so inspired by color and movement, wanting to be able to use my body. And I was like, I just want to pour paint to myself, and I want to paint on the walls, and I want to paint on the floor, I want to paint on the ceiling.
Yeah.
And so that's how that idea got started.
Natasha is an incredible body paint artist and artist overall. So, and dear friend of yours.
Yes.
Yeah, she's a great person.
So she ended up introducing me to someone who we collaborated with and create this body of art together. And it's funny because you kind of have all these ideas at first, like how that's gonna look like. And I remember the first one I did, I was like covered head to toe in paint, and I just wanted to like lie down and almost kind of give like a snow angel vibe, like something just like very angelic, very beautiful. And just like seeing the results, like I remember I was like crying. I was laughing so hard because first of all, I'm trying not to get footprints everywhere, so I kind of like had to like kind of like splat my bum like down and then lie down, and so like my bum was like this big and like my head was like a little dot and I had these little chicken arms.
So you're like, oh.
And I think they're still somewhere in storage.
Yeah.
This evolution.
The evolution.
Doing the next one, and there's so many hand and footprints, and I'm like, I don't like that. I've like tried to create my paintings where you can't tell exactly how it was made. I don't really like the hands and the feet. Sometimes one or two will appear there, but like otherwise, like I try to keep that kind of like anonymous.
Yeah.
So it is interesting to see how it's somewhat evolved. I think a big breakthrough was me wanting to create the biggest brush strokes as possible. So then I started doing like the slides.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what if I like slid across with my feet? Or what if I slid across with my knees? So finding ways to create like really large brush strokes instead of just like little ones or just like imprints.
Yeah.
So that's kind of some of the ways it's evolved, and I'm really loving where it's going.
I really love how each painting, it does evoke an emotion, and I always think that art is just a form of putting that energy into a tangible form. But I just love how you can really feel it's a very visceral, it evokes that visceral response. And now you've actually turned some of your paintings into clothing. Was that another collaboration of just like your passions?
Basically, it was also something that I was doing when I was working, with my ex and discovering other avenues. And I, since making clothes, in high school I'd paint on my clothes, and it's really nice to see that fabric has really, and like ways to print on fabric have really evolved.
Yeah.
So it's really beautiful to see and like use programs and take your art and like move it around and mirror it. And now we'll have things printed on silk, which is, before it was only like sublimation on polyester. And which is funny because I worked with this company and I was sewing for them, and at one point, maybe 3 months into working this company, I couldn't wear anything that was polyester. And anytime I put on a pair of leggings, I would have a little panic attack and start screaming because my legs would be on fire and I would rip them off.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand what was happening. So it was just like wearing cottons and linens and wools and silks for a while. And one day I was at work wearing a skirt and I'm sewing and my legs start burning. And what I realized was it was the microfibers landing on my skin, and I'd probably be inhaling them for the last 3 months that I became allergic to them.
Wow.
And that allergy ended up going away after quitting that job the next day. But
you're like, no, not doing this.
But I've always loved like fine fabrics and bright colors, and it's really nice to like see how I can like meld those together and create something beautiful that someone can wear.
Yeah. And through your art, through the clothes, is there a particular emotion or like feeling that you really want to evoke for the people who are experiencing it? Is that something you think about before, creating something?
Yeah, definitely. It obviously depends how I feel, and the painting is going to, turn out differently each time. Sometimes it's beautiful and sometimes it's not. But most of the time I am trying to create something magical and something ethereal and something natural. Something like light and bright and beautiful.
I love that. So in terms of your nutrition, yours is touch, which is interesting because it's all about like not only you want to like, how things feel, but also how you want things to kind of feel inside of you, like physically, but also emotionally. And what's interesting is like for you, having that touch, it's like you like to be in environments that are quite like busy, so like playing music, and you share a lot on your Instagram about your food and stuff, and even that is like a stimulation, and it gives you like that energy, and that's really good for you. So when it comes to also nutrition is not only about like eating, but it's also feeding your brain.
Oh yeah.
And so in your creative process, obviously with your touching paint and you're doing that, but do you have any other like certain movements, or how does touch play in a factor into your creative process?
I've never really thought about it, but I think hugely. Like I'm so inspired by color. I'm so inspired by texture, so inspired by flavor.
Yeah.
I always have music on. I'm
Yeah.
trying to like listen to myself. How do I feel? Like what do I want to listen to that's gonna like inspire me today? And sometimes that's 80s hair metal. Sometimes that's like French cafe music.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's like 90s hip hop.
Yeah,
I
love that about you. It's always like no matter what genre, you're always like down. You're like, yeah, let's do it, but let's just do it good. Like, I'm not gonna listen to bad music. That's so you.
Totally.
Yeah, I love that.
But I think also just feeling the paint, feeling it come down your body, feeling what it feels like when you like stroke through it on the floor, doing like the spin or the slide through the paint is always so exciting for me. And even just like I always talk about like my bed sheets because they're like so silky and they're pink, and I'm just like there's just like all these just like little things, because I believe so deeply that everything that we see and everything that we create and everything that we bring into our life and our relationships and our connections is art.
Yeah.
And putting the right intention and putting love into everything really can be so soul-filling.
Yeah, it really can be. Yeah. It's also interesting because your environment is narrow valleys, and basically that just means in your perfect environment is all about intimacy and like connection, and I feel that in yours, and you get that energy from it, and I feel that in your studio it's about it's a open concept, but it's also very cozy, you know what I mean, and it has that environment. So is that very did you do that deliberately to create an environment so you can tap into that more creative aspect of yourself in the studio?
I think that's always like I've always really valued intimacy and feeling safe.
Yeah.
So I can easily feel people's energy, and I can see exactly where I want to invest in. So being safe and creating a safe space and having fun and having these little areas that function in my life but are also just, I don't know, cute. I still have stuffed toys.
Yeah.
Like I still I like things that make me feel comfortable. And so I think intimacy is a big part of that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also by sharing your art, it's like you're allowing these people who are enjoying it to come into this intimate world of yours, right? Like the world of sparkles, the one that like you said, very intentional with the colors and the color, like just the playfulness, I think, but also the intention, I think, is really beautiful.
Play is super important.
Play is super important, right? Like especially tapping into your inner child, right? Like and being here today, like how has your inner child influenced your performances and your creative process?
It's something I feel really grateful that I haven't lost. I'm still curious. I'm really nostalgic. The other day I was feeling so nostalgic, and I think it started because I was like playing like the Goosebumps theme song.
I have not heard that in so long.
And then I'm like, oh, you know what I really want to do is like buy some vintage like super soakers and just like blast one of the paintings.
Oh, fun.
And then paint on top. And I love like, sparkles and stars. So I'm like, I'm going to spray paint some stars. And then I'm like, I have to buy those glow-in-the-dark stars that we used to
Oh,
have
yeah.
on our ceiling.
Yeah.
So I want to like glue those on, and I found some glow-in-the-dark paint to like do little like dots and stuff.
That is
So I'm
so
like,
fun.
I'm excited that my childhood and some of the things that we saw on TV
Yeah.
is still, you know, a lot of people like see my art, they're like, oh, it's like a slip and slide. I'm like, yeah, I guess, you know, it's like,
It's their own childhoods that like that interpretation, you know,
yeah,
their own influences that might be projected onto yours.
I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy those. Like, do you remember the sock and boppers?
Oh
Where
yeah.
you like blow them up and then you put them and you're just like,
Boom, boom. Yeah.
I'm like, I need those now.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And I love that. And I think that's such an important thing because I think our inner child's always there. But for a lot of people, if you don't feed that part of yourself, it dies off, right?
Yeah, it's so true. I think that, what's her name? Louise Hay?
Yeah.
She has her book, and I think that was huge for me when I read that book and I did some of the exercises. There's this one exercise where you picture yourself as a 4-year-old and you have to like shrink that little 4-year-old down and you like put it in a little pocket in your heart, and you do that with your parents too. And it's like one of these things, if you really get into it, you're just like, you're bawling your eyes out. You're like, we are all just children.
We are.
And we've all been hurt, and we deal with that different ways. So you have to be graceful with everyone that you meet.
Yeah. And is that something that you've always believed? Because especially as the martyr part of your profile, making those mistakes, like, are you able to give that grace? And especially, you know, for your innocent inner child, like, has that allowed you to have more compassion for
Definitely. It's, but also you like can't take no shit.
Yeah. It's like you're an adult now, so you can protect that part of yourself and stand up for that part of yourself. Yeah, I love that. So here are these little gates, these numbers along the sides. So this is your unconscious sun. So this is something that we have in common. And that is what you're really here to be, what you're really here to share with the world. Cool. And yours is the gate 58 of joy. And I think that's really what I think you share with the world through your art, through your dance, but also just who you are as a person, you know? Even when you're having like a bad day, you're still always like, hey, like, how's it going? Like, I could never tell right away, you know? So that's really
no one ever does. I'm like, I'm having a panic attack and I'm like,
But how do you really navigate that? Like, sharing that joy, sometimes is that a protection, or is it just a part of who you are? Like, even when you're feeling
it's a part of who I am, and I don't really want whatever hardship I'm going through to like affect other people.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the time, if I am going through something, that I'm just like a little bit more quiet, because I know that I can always like think and feel my way out of things. Also, maybe a good night's sleep.
Yeah. Rest.
But I'll always kind of be myself, but I'm also better at communicating what I'm going through. So on Sunday, I had a coffee and I just did like a 180, and I had like full anxiety attack. Like, I'm like sweating, my brain wasn't functioning like at all. I'm like, I know this is not normal, but I have to go to work. So being able to tell people at my work, I'm like, oh, I've been having like the never-ending panic attack. So people know, you know, and I can be gentle with me, or I can at least share what I'm going through, so I'm not so alone. Because in high school, I was depressed for years, and like no one knew, you know. I wasn't able to use my voice.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because on the other side, your conscious sun is the gate 17 of opinions. And so it's almost like taking that energy of your opinions and like how things are, and being able to communicate it when the time is right, and when it's in an environment that you feel like really safe in. This little line from your ajna, which is the processing center, to your throat, that's kind of what you're talking about. It's the channel of structuring. So it's all about like taking these you know, not necessarily opinions, but the things that are going on, and being able to share it when the time is right. So I feel like that is one of your gifts, is being able to, and when you don't feel especially with the defined throat. It's like when you don't feel like you're using your throat, it can create a lot of havoc on your body. Like, for
Yes.
instance, for me, like when I for years was not using my voice, and that created like thyroid problems, but also I just feel like that anxiety when I'm not using it. Does that feel like, can you look back at times you did share about like how you weren't using your voice in high school and how that created like a time? It's also interesting because of the you being the son in of joy, and then facing depression. I also experienced that, and it's almost like the you can feel the black and white energy, right?
Oh, it's like night and day.
Yeah. Yeah.
You seem like someone, and you are that person,
Mm-hmm.
but then you feel so deeply, and there's so much darkness.
Yeah.
So it's very kind of polarizing,
Mm-hmm.
because no one will ever know.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, it came from a lot of shame,
Mm-hmm.
because situations where I was taken advantage of, and I didn't know how to deal with that. And I didn't have a community that I could go to. And I just went through the whole thing alone for so long.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I realized I went to see a doctor how psychologically abused I was,
Mm-hmm.
and like how that person made me believe something that was so not true. And that was like a light switch went off. I was like, oh, I will never let anyone treat me like that again.
Yeah.
And I need to do research
Yeah.
on all of these topics. And I went through this like massive transformation of healing my body and healing my mind, and like read up on so many things to do so. I also, one thing that was like so valuable is like, I think so much of like the stress and the toxicity and trauma had led to certain things like coming out in my body, and being able to go back and do like research and finding out how I can heal my body. So I found out that I had like so much damage done to my small intestine, and your small intestine creates 90% of your serotonin.
Oh, wow.
So if that's damaged, you're not creating serotonin. You're going to be depressed.
Yeah.
So when I was able to heal my small intestine, like I don't really get depression ever. Like it'll be a day here, a day there.
Yeah.
But like it's not every day for months and years.
Yeah.
So that was like so valuable, like going and diving deep into the pain and diving into the trauma and being able to heal myself.
Wow, yeah, and it's almost like that foundational research and figuring it out that really served you in that time, and it's also sounds like it was a great catalyst for you to step into your power.
Totally.
And to be on this creative journey. I'm a huge believer that in any art form it's a very vulnerable process, and it can be a really great journey of stepping into your power.
Totally. Then you can start to trust in yourself, and then you can use your voice, because you can see what is right and what is wrong, or what you don't like, and be able to communicate with people on how they can treat you better, or setting boundaries, and realizing who deserves to be in your life and who really doesn't.
Yeah, no, that's key. It's like creating that safety, right? So that you can really flourish. Has your journey of really, because it has been such a journey of different modalities of art and expression, have you really recognized that like this is a journey, this is an outlet for you to really step into your power and share who you are? Have you had any big fears of like being vulnerable?
In the past, definitely, but not so much anymore.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. It feels really good to be able to share what I'm thinking, or share the artwork that like inspires me. So I'm
Yeah.
like very happy about that.
Yeah, and it is really inspiring because you share so much on social media. You definitely need to follow Sparkles on Instagram because you're so good at it. And I think it's something that we shouldn't take for granted because it is so hard, especially in this time of judgment, I think, and like to be able to just be your authentic self. You do that so well and it's so beautiful. But I'm sure there were lots of moments, especially as a martyr of have you ever felt like you've overshared or had anything like a vulnerability hangover or anything like that?
Honestly, I don't regret it.
Yeah.
My oversharing.
Mhm.
Sometimes my mom's like, don't do that.
What are you saying on the internet? Yeah.
But that's a part of my journey and it's a part of my story. And I think it's important to be vulnerable to inspire other people.
Yeah.
So I was like talking to my mom yesterday. I was like, sometimes I don't know if people really value like the beauty of the art because not everyone understands where like it came from and like all the pain it came from.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do I literally have to like, start trauma dumping and slit my wrists and explain all of these horrendous things that got me to the place where I am for people to understand? And I'm like, in a way, I kind of have to do that. And it's like, it's a little bit scary. And I've started my memoir, and there's a lot of things that are cringy, and there's a lot of things that like my family's not going to want to hear, and decisions that I made were very poor.
Yeah, but you've learned from them and they've brought you to this point, right? Yeah, it's hard. I think that's something I definitely struggle with is the vulnerability hangover. It's like, especially when you're not used to being seen and like it can just feel extremely overwhelming.
Yeah.
So did you feel like you did that in like baby steps, or are you a person that kind of just like went all out and
I, I, I've always been pretty kind of like young and wild and free, like energy wise. Yeah. So I think when I was more vulnerable about my thoughts and my emotions, it wasn't maybe a huge surprise for people, but it was definitely very difficult, especially describing things that I was very ashamed about. But it's amazing to see how supportive people are when you are that vulnerable.
Yeah. And it's unfortunately I think it's so common for people to resonate with that, like the shame and feeling like we don't have necessarily power over our own sovereignty and our own, bodies, and I think like you doing the dance in this way, it really shows
it's the reclamation of my body.
Yeah. It's actually such a beautiful, beautiful thing, and I think it's so inspiring for people to see. I think that's an incredible journey that you have, and I personally do find it so inspiring to be able to find your power in that way and to share it with people in such a magical way. So going to the spleen, and that's your inner authority. So maybe you can talk to us a little bit about points in your journey where you've really had to lean on your intuition and maybe made a decision that didn't logically make sense, because that's the thing in human design is we're really meant to get out of our minds and into our body. And like I mentioned, the spleen is very quiet and it usually only won't repeat itself. So it's like when the timing's right, it'll be like, no, don't do that. But then, as time goes on, your mind will be like, oh, but it's a good opportunity. Oh, it's like, I should be doing this, blah, blah, blah. Do you have any examples?
I had this one trip when I was young, and I was flying to Mexico on New Year's Day to see an ex. And while I was flying down, I had this horrible feeling. And I get to the hotel and he's not there. But I had met this girl. Everything just felt like so like in place. And so we end up hanging out, and just along the whole day, I had met these people who became like main characters in this like downfall of a situation.
Okay.
And I end up getting led to this other bar, and I've always been really attracted to people, places, and things. Like there's like a gravitational thing, and I'm like, I need to talk to that person. So I will go up to a stranger, be like, introduce myself.
Yeah.
So I see these guys, and I'm like, I don't know what it is, but there's something there. And I end up going back to the hotel, and I'm sleeping and wake up, and he's still not there. And I go to this other club where I know he is, and his friends are like, oh, we met a girl last night. And I was like, oh dear. And I meet one of the guys who I saw earlier at the club, and he ends up walking me home. And I get back to the hotel, and my ex is with this girl, and he's like, oh, I want you to leave. And so I pack up all my things. He's like, oh, you can like leave your stuff here, but just go now. And I was like, you're a fucking asshole. I'm like, slam the door. And this guy was still standing outside the door. He's like, do you want to come live with me and my friends?
Oh.
And like took care of me all week because I was like not eating.
Yeah.
Like, and they were just like, they're like, Sparkles, you need to eat food. Like this and that. Like it's
like a little guardian angel, you know? Like literally an earth angel. That's amazing. So you feel like that your intuition, that little, did you feel it in your body? Was it or is it just like a small little inkling?
I feel like whenever it's like a small little inkling. I know like exactly like who's right for me, who's not. It's when things change, you just like feel like an energy shift.
Yeah.
Of like anytime like a guy is like cheating on me, I've got like sick to my stomach. Like it's like I just know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you learn how to, again, it goes back to self-trust. Like learn how to trust yourself and trust those little inner niggles. Like, I don't have proof, but it's gonna come.
It's gonna come. And it's like, I don't need to feel like there's no need for me to kind of like be questioning like people's intentions, or like if I get like one little ick, I'm like, that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. No, it's true. And it's like, again, having that respect for yourself and knowing your self-worth. Yeah. Which has probably been a really great lesson for you, just seeing how you have your heart is undefined. So this is where self-worth lives, and it's where you take the energy of the people around you and you can amplify it, but it also means where you've learned a lot of lessons.
Oh my god.
Like, oh yeah.
I saw like one of my healers, and she like read my palm. She's like, oh, you have a very tumultuous past with your like love, with love. And I was like, that's an understatement. Yeah.
But again, being a martyr, it's like, didn't you learn those lessons that have really impacted not only your other romantic relationships, but again, your self-worth and your relationships with others?
Yeah, it just gets better and better and better.
Yeah. No, it's great. And, I think those times in your life where you've had to have big breakups and you've always emerged, and resurrected and created something really beautiful. And now here you are, you know?
Totally.
Yeah. So another area that you, is undefined is your emotional center, your solar plexus. So it makes you really empathic, and you've really felt not only the emotions that you feel and experience, but the people around you. You can take it in and really amplify it. Has that impacted your art, or at least showed you like what kind of emotions that you want to share through your art? Because you've experienced so many different things, and whenever I look at your artwork and the interpretations that I get, it just feels so full, So has that impacted you as an artist or your creative process in any way?
Yeah, I feel like someone walks by, you feel the vibes.
Yeah, the vibes.
Yeah, it's like to like protect yourself from that. Like sometimes it's difficult, especially actually when it is a really strong emotion like anger. Or if someone snaps at you, it's so easy as an Aries to just fucking send it back like 10 times harder.
Yeah.
Like you want to go, like make your brain explode.
No, it's true. But it's also where you probably have learned a lot of lessons in setting those boundaries, right?
Yeah.
And being able to be like, okay, is this worth my energy or not?
Yeah, I think like learning how to take a deep breath before you like send it back
Mm-hmm.
has been very valuable, because you're not going to get anywhere if you're yelling at someone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's true. And I think that's a thing that I've definitely learned how to navigate my anger, because I think I went from a period of just being like more numb, and that's not helpful, because energy needs somewhere to go.
Even then you get resentful.
Yeah, but finding productive ways of expressing anger, and it's usually not towards the person that's pissing me off.
Yeah, I think it's the way you communicate, but I've definitely done pieces of art where I'm like, I'm impatient or I'm upset, and that will reflect in the colors usually, or just the performance, or the just the dynamics of the movement and whatnot.
Yeah, that's amazing. What is your favorite part of the creative process, especially when you're like choosing the colors, and then, you know, if you're doing the performance, like how much of it is planned ahead of time and how much of it is like, you know, impromptu kind of improv? Can you share a little bit about that process?
But when it comes to planning it, I sometimes I would think about it for a really, really long time. And having the space ready takes some time, and mixing all the colors. Like I'm thinking about the piece now with like the super soakers and like the stars and everything, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like blast it with black, and then I'm gonna take it down, and then I'm gonna put like colors, and then I'm gonna roll over it. I'm like, do I just want those colors to be really dark, so when I spray paint the stars they like shine, or do I want to also do like let it dry and do like another layer of like pastels where I'm creating clouds? So I'm like, how am I going to layer it?
Yeah.
What is that process? And am I really happy with like the palette that I've chosen? But with something that's like so kind of designed, like that doesn't really leave a ton of room for me to do like a creative like dance performance.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm really focused on the final product. Sometimes I'm focused on the dance. So it's really easy if I'm like, I started painting with one color, because then I can do all the movements that I want, and it's not gonna like meld the painting into a color that I'm not satisfied with. So I find when like doing these imprints and whatnot, less is more.
Okay. So if you're doing like a performance, like for instance, you were at Art for Art and you did that beautiful performance, like, so in those moments where there's like a big crowd and people are around, is that more focused on the dance aspect?
It was purely the dance.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm like, I've used like some neon colors, and then I did the black, which was really dynamic over it. But then the final product was like just like a mush of things, doesn't have any like conceptual like it just like not super pleasing to the eye. And also after that performance I basically had to fold it and roll it, and then bring it home and open it up and like let that dry, and it was just, you know, it's not, I can paint over it and then do another painting, but for these live performances it's mostly the pouring of the art, and if I have enough room, the movements and the slides and whatnot.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite performance that you've done so far?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. It's really hard to say, because sometimes there's like moments that I love. I did this one painting called Carpel, and I wanted it to look like a bouquet of flowers.
Okay.
So I started with this kind of peachy background, and there was so many camera angles. And so it was really nice to be able to choose each angle for each movement and put it together. So I'm like super proud of how it edited and it came out. And so I think that's one of my favorite things, because, you know, there's like one angle that's done from here, and then it goes into the next movement, but it's like this angle. So it's like it really captured the best like movement in like each frame.
Yeah. Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And do you have a perfect, like your favorite kind of piece that you've done? It could be like fashion piece, or it could be a painting.
I think my favorite painting lives in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like a real breakthrough piece for me. And it kind of goes through a gradient of colors, and I start from one end of the canvas and ends at the other end of the canvas, and it's like 16 feet long.
Oh
So
wow.
it's like pink and red and orange and yellow, and as there's more color that's like picked up on my body, it gets like almost more colorful at the end, and you're seeing like some of the pinks and the greens like from like all painting that was all the way over
Yeah.
here. And also I did like a blue painting called Nectar, and it's just so like juicy and just like blues and whites, and it's like the ocean, and it's just
I
like
love that.
giving me Aphrodite.
Oh, I love that. That is amazing.
Yeah.
And what about a fashion
I think
clothing piece?
obviously like the Superstar Bustier.
Oh,
That's like my like
oh,
signature piece.
yeah. I do love that. I love the spacesuits too.
Yeah, the spacesuits
Yeah.
are awesome.
Yeah.
I think like the Superstar Bustier, like it started after like going through my healing process of like all of like the assault. Was I'm like, I want to create a piece of armor,
Yeah.
but it's see-through. So the first one I created was out of plastic, so it was completely see-through.
Wow.
And I was just like lace it together, and that's kind of how that the evolution started. But being so vulnerable but so protected.
Oh, I love that. Because, yeah, it's like the beauty of still being both, you know? And that's such a magical, magical thing. And I love that. And it's great that you can share that with the world. Because even if somebody, you know, doesn't know the story behind it, it's really interesting how you feel when you put something on, you know, that protection, that vulnerability. It's so beautiful how that energy can really transpire and be absorbed into a piece like that.
Totally.
Yeah. So going to your work ethic, because as a projector,
Yeah.
you are really able to do it because you're able to see how energy moves much deeply than other people. You really are only supposed to work about 3 to 4 hours a day, but within that time, you're able to do the amount of work that another person would do within an 8-hour workday.
Yeah.
So, are you a napper? Can you really like navigate?
I do realize that there are days where I just don't feel like I'm capable of doing much.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just kind of have to like set the tone of like maybe just like tidying and doing things here and there. Because I know that if I have like a good night's sleep and I'm like have like a fresh mentality, I can get so much done.
Yeah.
Like it's insane. Like I can get more done in a day than like So
again,
I kind of realize that about myself.
Yeah.
So I realize I have to be gentle with myself when I am physically and mentally exhausted and I'm not capable of doing things. Because I know I'm like, I don't like putting things off because there's so much that I want to do and so much that I want to achieve.
Yeah.
But I do have to be gentle with myself and be like, I know, girl, like you can do a million things in one day. So
yeah, it's like listening to yourself, trusting yourself, and like navigating kind of the dips of your energy and figuring out how to kind of tap into that. Because I always say to my clients, it's like projectors have this these magical glasses, but they need to be charged every 4 hours. So you might need to like take a break.
Yes.
Are you good with taking breaks?
I am. I can like do things and then I'm like, oh, I need to lie down. And then I lie down for an hour and I'm like, okay, now I can get up and I can do these other errands that I need to do.
Yeah.
But I also kind of actually noticed that like even with creativity, like I will love something and I'll be so inspired by something and then I'm like, I don't like this anymore. And then I think that's why I switched from like design to like art to travel or focusing on food or like I find that I don't particularly love forcing myself to do something that's not giving me joy at that moment.
Yeah, it's like you need to, especially when it comes to creativity, you need to have that kindness to yourself in order to really be able to like coax it out, right?
Yeah, and obviously you can't be happy all the time when you're creating. You're like, but it does feel better when you're like in the mood for it.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Sometimes you just kind of have to push on through. Like, I don't particularly want to do this right now, but I'll be happy I did like later.
It's like catching a wave, right? You can't force the wave. You gotta just let it happen. And again, there's like so many other things that you're doing. So it's like, okay, maybe I'll put my focus on this other thing, you know?
Yeah.
Do you have any like pre-show rituals or like anything that you have to do before you create?
Stretch.
Yeah, that's key for safety.
Yeah, for stretching. Like mixing the paint, I find is very therapeutic. Just having a little bit of direction on what I'm going to do, like, helps take away some of the anxiety of my insecurity of it.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, I don't really have like, I don't sage myself or anything. Maybe I should.
Maybe
I have done it before. But...
like, the vibes are off. I need to fix this. That's so funny. I love that. Yeah, no, it's good to have that, like, just awareness of your own energy, and because you are putting it out into the world, right?
Yeah.
In an artistic performance. Kind of talked about how your style has evolved over the years. But what have you learned? What would you say is the biggest lesson that you've learned about yourself as an artist along the way? And it could be through all the modalities that you do, but what would you say is something?
I always kind of believed you can create the life of your dreams if you work hard and you believe enough. And you I really want to forge a life for myself that is unique to me. Something that feels like magic is important. And just constantly working and believing on that, I know I will eventually get to this idolized place that I've dreamt of.
Yeah, and I think it's so important because I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves and on timelines, right? And looking at like, oh, I want to be here now. But it's like life is a journey, and the more that you can enjoy the whole journey and find those moments of joy and find those, I think it's so important to like take that pressure off and just know, you know, whether that version of success, it comes in 2 years, it comes tomorrow, it comes in 10 years, like you just know that you're on the path and you're so within your worth, and know that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I think that's so powerful.
Totally.
I love that. The other thing that me and you have in common is actually our incarnation cross. So your incarnation cross is kind of what your energy feels so fulfilled in accomplishing, and for you and me, it's the right angle cross of service. So how do you feel like your art serves other people?
I think that when like people see my art, it's something that they've probably never seen before. So it's like when I do a performance, I love like hearing and feeling like people's reaction to it, whether that's like just like a little girl sitting there mesmerized, or someone being like, oh, ooh, I think that it's able to help people get out of their mind or that box of what is possible or what people are doing that can inspire like their little child and bring some more fun or some more joy into their lives.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I saw you perform at Art for Art, and people were just like, wow. And it is the magic. I think, you know, so many people enjoy art, but to see the magic of actually creating something, people don't get to. It's like being let into a little bit of a world that people might not always get to see, and especially fusing it with the dance. Like that is just such a beautiful idea, and I think it's so natural to you, and it kind of came about, your journey of finding this kind of came about in such a natural way, you know. It's just like, of course you're gonna do this, like, you know. it's so cool, and I think it is really important to have that inspiration for others. Like what is it that is really unique about you, for the viewers that are watching. It's like, just look at that, and the answer is right under your nose most of the time. So I love that. So what about the future? Like, what are you really what are you moving towards? What are maybe some collaborations that you have your eye on, or use that throat, because your throat is having a defined throat.
Yeah.
We're able to really manifest through our throat. So what's in store for you in the future?
I definitely would at some point love to have a show,
Mm-hmm.
and so I can invite all my friends and people can see the art in person, because most of the time no one ever sees the final product, whether it's a photo, unless you come to my house. I have a couple of pieces, but being able to, show my art in a gallery, perhaps like do a performance for all my like family and friends, is something that I really want to do at some point. But when it comes to collaborations, it could be endless. I think my dream collaboration would be working with Mugler.
Oh, I love that. Put it out there. Yes.
It's just like everything's so like kind of like dark and alien and sexy, and I can just see like the black paint and like the makeup and the crazy like outfits like he does. Like, I think that would just be like my dream collab.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Well, it's happening. Putting it out into the universe. Yeah, make it happen. I love that. And it is like such a cool way of, especially for fashion brands, you are encompassing so many different things. It's like the artwork, the fashion, the energy that you really evoke and want people to feel through experiencing your art. So you glare, like, come on. Come on, this is a great opportunity. I love that. Okay, so just wrapping up, like, your journey from moving from Toronto, and I love it because even though you've moved to Montreal, you still come to Toronto a lot, you still do a lot of art here in Toronto. But what do you think are the biggest differences that you see in Toronto? And it can be specifically the art scene, or it could be more broad, but what are the biggest differences you see, Toronto versus Montreal?
I would describe Montreal as, it feels kind of almost more like a town or a village compared to Toronto, where it feels like more of a big city here.
Yeah.
Especially downtown and with all of its varying neighborhoods. I love Toronto. I'm really grateful I grew up here. I love my education here. There's so many things that I really value about this place. But I also just love Montreal and where I am now.
Yeah.
Because I always describe Montreal as like very sophisticated, very sexy, very French. It's has all that old architecture and like extremely artsy. Like the public art's amazing. Art is everywhere within the architecture, to the sculptures, to the galleries. And it's something that I really value. It's just, there's a level of peace that I really enjoy in Montreal. Yeah. And I also just like really love how kind of like windy the roads are. I think growing up in Toronto, and I'm like, if I have to go down this one straight street one more time, like it's just
boring.
It's like it's just I think I lived here for 28 years before I moved. That's a long time to be going down the same road. Yeah.
So it's like a little fun. Yeah, that checks out. I feel like you like the excitement and like,
I love new. Like, I love traveling because I feel like a kid the whole time I'm traveling. I'm like, I'm lost. Let's get ice cream. Like,
yeah. I agree with that. It's like stepping outside your comfort zone is always where you can learn the most and grow the most opportunities for growth. So I really agree with that. What do you think, like, for people at home who really feel called to create art or just start a creative project of some sort, what would be your advice for them to?
Oh, yeah. I would say, like, pick your favorite material. Like, as a kid, I really loved in school when they would give us oil pastels, and it was just, like, so pigmented. You just, like, squish it into the paper. Yeah. Or like if you like love sparkles, like grabbing some glue and some sparkles. I think just, it doesn't have to be good, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
whatever made you happy as a
Mhm.
kid, try to find some form of like picking that up a little bit.
Yeah, that's a really good advice, and also speaking like a like a true martyr. It's like it doesn't have to be good. Make it can be messy. It can make those mistakes. That's actually how, through your experience, how you learn the most,
Yeah.
right? I love that. Oh, this was so fun.
You're really good at this.
Oh, thanks. I love it. I love like exploring you, and especially as friends, but we never get the chance to really dig deep into things in the past. It's always like, oh, what's going on now kind of thing, right? So this was really fun.
Yeah.
I always end the podcast with one question, and it's about Toronto.
Okay.
What is the peak and the pit? What is the best thing about living or Toronto in general, and what is the worst thing about Toronto?
Oh God, it's gonna be a little controversial.
Lay it on us.
Oh gosh, I think that. Okay, I'm gonna start with the worst thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
Don't worry. Everybody in Toronto knows.
I think that like growing up here and being young and being so naive and not realizing that there are bad people in the world was like a huge lesson for me. So I think like experience certain things from like men who have just don't know, or people or men who are maybe mentally ill. Like I wish there was like a better support system.
Yeah. For sure.
But I think that's like been such a huge lesson for me. And so like that's I don't know how to describe that exactly, but
it's like it's because there's so many people, and of course there's like safety concerns when people are struggling with mental health, when they're struggling, with addictions or what have you, their own demons, and there's no support for that. Then of course innocent people are going to be victimized in that sense, because we don't have those good support systems and for them to get help that they need.
Exactly.
So I 100% agree with that, and I think it's something important that should be, especially over the last few years, I've definitely seen the uptick in homelessness, but not only homelessness, but also mental health.
Yes.
She's like at Union Station. Every time I go to Union Station, there's this one guy who always calls me a witch, but he'll like harass me, and I'm always like, man, like obviously I don't take it personally, but at the same time, what if he were to get like aggressive towards me or towards, and nobody does anything about it, so it's like
scary.
It is scary. So I'm really sorry, that you had to experience that, especially when you're younger, because it does shape you, and it brings that fear in you, and we really should strive for a society where everyone feels safe. So I agree with that one.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so that's we got that one out of the way.
Yeah, we got that. Let's end on a high note.
And then I think probably my favorite part about Toronto, as it's the most multicultural city in the world, I love like the cuisine, and I love all of the experiences.
Yeah.
Within like culture within the city that is like so vibrant. You can like literally find any type of cuisine, from like mom and pop to like high end like fine dining. And I think that's such a great experience.
It is. It is that would be my favorite thing, I think. For
also
sure.
The island.
Yeah, the island is a good time. The island is a good time. It is. What is your favorite like restaurant or cuisine here in Toronto?
Oh, that's so hard
to
say. Oh my gosh. I used to have like a list of like 50 restaurants that I would send to people like when needed. But I think I'll go with like when I was a kid and I did well in school, or I did well in my gymnastics, and my parents were like, oh, we're gonna treat you, like where do you want to go? And I would literally always just go down the street to like like Greek town.
Yeah.
And I just like, I love like Greek desserts. And I love like just.
We live close to the dam fort, so there's so many options there. And Greek would be top tier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also like, I love anything spicy. So I love like Thai and Cambodian and Indian. Like, anything just like, I love discovering new flavors and like bringing them home, trying new fruits, like trying new herbs. Like it's like I get so off on that.
Yeah, and this is a great place to explore that. Yeah. So I love that. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sparkles. This was so much fun. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.